All right, I guess that's me. I'm Dustin. I'm an alcoholic. My story starts. I remember my first drink. I was about 6 years old, and had some wild turkey. And my cousin showed me how to put water in, and so he didn't get caught. So it was probably 50-50 wild turkey water. Yeah, that's how I got started. My cousins were getting me going, and soon after, I was getting bullied in school, and I picked an older kid at school, and I said, hey, I need you to teach me how to fight. I need to deal with this guy who was a couple of years older than me. And so he started teaching me how to fight and mentored me, and then I stayed the night at that guy's house, and he had a bottle of whiskey, and that was the first night. I think I was 8 at that time. That was the first time I went out doing actual drinking, and I don't remember the end of that night. I do remember we were going around car checking and up to no good, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so that ended up being my first time out, and like I don't even remember what happened, you know, that's just how I was going from the get-go. And over time, soon after that, my parents caught on, and my dad went to AA. He's got sober in Pomona at a program called ADTC, part of Pomona Valley Hospital. And so I was 8 years old and became aware that I was an alcoholic, and I started taking some chips. I figured if I went out drinking and blacked out my first time that I might have an issue. And but I wasn't ready to quit drinking. I was just a kid, and being raised in Alcoholics Anonymous, I started formulating these opinions of AA and what it was, and really didn't have any idea. It's funny, I said all the prayers, but to me it was just a place where people were replacing their alcohol addiction with a meeting and fellowship addiction. And I decided that I wasn't going to quit drinking. I was going to show you guys that I could do it, because I had been armed with the knowledge as a young kid. And that's pretty much what my life looked like. My dad would take me on AA retreats, and you know, I'd sneak alcohol, and it was a shit show. And leading on from there, my parents decided to send me off to rehabs a couple times. One time they sent me with my sister. It was like a all expense paid vacation for the parents. And it was like, what the hell am I doing here? And I just remember as a kid really identifying with a lot of the songs from Suicidal Tendencies, you know, like Abandonment. And I was in a house that was really, really, really violent. My parents beat each other a lot, and the alcoholism and the codependency of my mom, like it was just insane. Like they'd beat each other bloody, and I remember one time my dad come home drunk, my mom knocked him out with a baseball bat. I'm sitting on the couch like, oh shit, my dad got up and he gave it to her, man, and I didn't know that my mom was gonna survive that, you know. And I kind of felt like she had it coming too, like wow, you know, like how crazy are you? You're gonna attack somebody like that. And so I spent my childhood in a place of fear, always thinking that my parents were legitimately gonna kill me. I thought my mom was gonna light me on fire in bed. My dad, there was an incident where my dad was drunk, my mom took my sister and I, and we escaped in the van, and my dad chased us in the truck. And my mom pulled into some random house, and he just repeatedly rammed us from behind while we're in the car. My mom's freaking out. It was just these insane moments for a little kid to try and reconcile. It just really had me coming apart at the seams as a kid. And basically it was like every other day, it seemed like, or weekly, I was dialing 911 and I was jumping out my window. I had my screen, so it was like quick release, so I could jump out the window and I could run out the back, and I'd go the house behind my house, and I had a safe house in my neighborhood, a lady that I could go to, and my parents wouldn't come get me, and they didn't know where I was. They just knew I was safe. That was how I grew up with alcoholism, and even though my dad was sober, he still struggled a lot dealing with me because I was not an easy kid to deal with. I rebelled a lot, and I fought every step of the way, and it was other forms of alcohol, give me whatever I could take, whatever I could get, I would take it basically, and ended up trying to get on the straight and narrow in high school, and fell in love early, and then when that fell apart, I fell apart, because I was reliant upon somebody else. Like she was my higher power at that time, right? And then when that fell apart, so did I, and I just went into drugs and alcohol full steam, and dropped out of school, and then ended up getting really sick and having to have my whole family come to say goodbye to me as a junior. I had this infection in my head, and the only thing I could get for pain was marijuana. It was everybody thought I was just a drug addict, but I was really legitimately in a lot of pain, and so there was a lot of back and forth of doctors putting me on pain meds, taking me off completely because my dad was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and so it was a pretty hard time, and then as high school was winding down, soon after that I started coming back, and I had this invincibility complex about me where, I didn't die from this infection that should have killed me. And, that's when things started getting really bad. I was just going off the edges, off the rails, drinking, and I was getting in fights, and I was really getting beat up. I was getting, knocked out, because I just, how good can you fight when you're wasted, right? You think you're all that, but you don't never see the punch coming from the side for some reason. And man, it was a lot of shit went down, and my parents sent me. I told my parents I had to get out of town. I don't know what to do, and they sent me to rehab another time where I found another chick, that we buddied up, and I pretended to do the program, but I was not ready. I really was. I quit for the time that I was there, but I was really focused on, I can do this. I can control my drinking, and I was going to give it everything I had as a teenager. And I got a DUI. I was 18. I was working construction, and so I had more money than most of my friends. And I remember thinking I was so proud of myself because I got in my truck. I swerved from one side of the street to the other side, and I didn't hit the curbs. And I was like, wow, I'm wasted. I can't drive. And parked my truck. I went back and I told them at the party, I can't drive, and I need to crash on the couch. And then a little bit later, the girls were like, well, we want to go to so-and-so's house. And I said, I couldn't drive. And some girls like, I can drive. And then we get in the truck, and she hits the curb, and I start laughing. She's like, what's so funny? And I go, I drive better drunk than you drive sober. She goes, gets out, walks around, opens my door, and says, do it then. And I was like, oh, like an idiot. Okay. Jump in, and I'm driving, and in my mind, I'm going to get more alcohol. And they're like, where are you going? Where are you going? They're telling me to turn left from the right-hand side of the road. It's like 3 a.m. on Foothill Boulevard. And I'm like, are you crazy? You can't do that. And cars coming, so I make a right-hand turn, and that car was a cop. And I took off running and got busted. And man, that was it. I got blue at 2.6. At 18 years old.
That's getting at the old college track.
And it was
Not
just
bad.
That was just how we drank. I was drinking, I was like thinking I was so cool, like I could invert the keg longer than everybody, or I had beer and I had beer money, like I can get the keg. I felt so cool, and I felt like so a part of, and the drinking and the kids, everybody just felt so accepting when I was doing that, and it seemed like it was fulfilling this hole I had in me. And after that, soon after that, I went to work for my dad. And my dad was sober for 10 years until I turned 18, and he said, I don't have a problem with drinking, you all just have a problem with my drinking. And that was right when I started working for him. So the next thing I knew is, we were driving to work, and on the way home, we'd stop at 7-Eleven. He'd get 2 40s, I'd go get 2 big gulps, and just put lids on them, and we'd put the 40s in the big gulp cups and be driving home drinking those. So that's how I got off running. Dad kind of showed me how to drink at an early age, and man, it was nothing good. But I was still really committed to trying to foster an illusion that I could control my drinking. And I spent most of my life doing exactly that, like having all these rules, and I always felt like my alcoholism was this monster that like other people didn't have to deal with. Like I could stop drinking sometimes, like, I didn't go through much of that trying to quit drinking and failing, because it was like, I would be like, oh shit, I gotta quit drinking, and I would put it away for maybe a week or something. And my drinking really presented itself a lot like Russian roulette. Every time I take that drink, sometimes I could pull it off. I could pretend like I was a gentleman, and have one beer. But I was working at it the whole time, and it was a real struggle. And then other times I'd take that drink, and it was just straight off the rails. And often with my wife, I remember every time I would drink, a lot of times we would like, okay, we'll have a bet, gamble over who gets to drink tonight. And then I'd end up drinking anyways. And she'd get pissed, and because she wouldn't know what's Dustin gonna do. I had this other alter ego name. They called me Dutton Smith, was my drunkard name. A lot of my drinking career was at Glamis, the sand dunes. And when I went to Glamis the first time, I think I was probably 19 years old. And I remember I told my dad, I went to this place, Glamis, and it was like the Wild West. It was the most, I remember being at Glamis and talking to God and being like, wow, I know why I'm alive. Because it was a place where we just drank and we went balls out. Everybody went crazy and there was no rules, and that was my experience. And I just told my dad, I found the why I'm alive, and I'm gonna die at this place. Like, I love this so much. This is my calling. I ended up taking my dad out there, and we get drunk and get in fights, and it was just a shit show. But I had I manifested all this power into this. Red Bull and Jägermeister was my major, and I manifested this power into this Jägermeister flag that I had. And I was certain that as long as I was flying that flag, that I would survive. Everything would be okay. And it was just a shit show, man. And I just had no fear. I would always be doing the craziest shit and not think about the consequences. I never cared about the consequences. And somehow I always was getting away with murder. And fast forward, I had raised my kids, and my kids were finishing high school, and my wife was fucking done. She was so sick of the bullshit. Like, there was so many times I would leave her hanging, so many times that, I'd just disappear. She really hated, like, every time we go out to a party and she'd drag me home early, I'd be wired, and I'd be like, I'm not going to bed. And then I'd go to the bar for, the last of the drinks, and to stay in after it closed, and then skateboard home wasted and post it online, like, hey, look at me, I'm an idiot, I'm still alive, proof of life. But man, I remember pulling up at camps at Glamis, and a guy goes to me, he's like, is that Dustin Smith? Or is that Dutton Smith? And that's how I got that drunkard name. He's like, I was always known as the flashlight flyer, because I duct tape a flashlight on my fender in my dirt bike, and I'd ride all night, and I'd just have a backpack full of beers, and then I ran out of beers, and I had to go back, and it was crazy. And then I spent a lot of my life just worried, like, I want to have some kind of legacy that I'm going to pass on to my kids. But when I was working for it, I had worn myself down so much that I just became such a negative, angry person. I couldn't enjoy my drinking anymore. And it just became suffering. And I remember my wife being like, you're always so negative, and we're always walking on eggshells with you. You're always such a monster. And that's when I started to be like, okay, there is some problem here. What's going on? And I remember thinking, like, I had a heart attack. I was having these anxiety issues, and nothing seemed to really be the magic bullet. And I was trying all these other forms of alcohol to sedate myself and get through it, and it just prolonged that suffering. But I was really committed to, I'm not gonna quit drinking. I'm just gonna die, I'm gonna drink till I die. And I was very committed to that. And what ended up happening is I just ran out of suffering ability. Like one day I just couldn't do it anymore. And really my wife couldn't do it anymore. And that was eye-opening. I never thought in a million years my wife would leave me. And as my kids were finishing school, the kids were moving out, she was making moves to get divorced. And it really opened up my eyes. And then the next thing I knew was, I was like, all I could identify was I had resentments. I had a lot of resentments, and I thought my problems were something to do with my head, and I thought, yeah, I've got to figure out why am I out of balance, and what pills do I need to get in balance? I thought if I just got the right pills with the right team of psychotherapists or whatever, we could figure out what was wrong with me, like I'm manic depressive or whatever. I'm one of those things, and if I could just figure it out, everything would be better. And luckily I reached out to somebody that I met when I was like 8-10 years old, going to program with my dad, and she turned out to be a guardian angel for me, and she sent me to the rooms. The last weekend I went out drinking, I went up to Big Bear for a Pennywise concert, and I was out of my mind, and I was doing everything I could, and it started off like such a party, but my wife was leaving me, and I was just coming apart at the seams, and I just couldn't cure the emptiness inside of me. And in that night, I had felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my whole life. To be so alone in a room full of people was just such a scary thing for me. And that night I had given up on everything, and I just didn't care. Everything seemed so dark and hopeless. And I remember driving home from Big Bear Lake to my house in Upland in less than 40 minutes, and that shouldn't be possible. That's like an hour and a half drive. And I was driving like a maniac in my full-size truck, just sideways on turns and screaming at God. And I was so blown away at where I had landed that I was ready to try anything. And I called that lady, and she said, you need to get to a meeting today. You need to do 3 meetings today, 90 meetings in 90 days. And you need to get a sponsor as soon as possible and start working the steps. And I remember thinking, like, don't you know who I am? I have a job, I have a house, I have my car, I have all this stuff. So I thought I was I thought I was in control. I had this illusion that I was controlling and managing my drinking, but I wasn't. And, luckily I was able to take the guidance, get into the program, and I remember reading the doctor's opinion and it talking about, if you don't think you have a problem controlling your drinking, then try quitting for a year and see how that goes. And I remember reading about the psychopath and the schizophrenic, and I underlined it in the book with a pencil. I was like, oh, this is my out. And then it talked about these two were also often cured by quitting drinking and living a program of honesty. And I was pissed. That was my first resentment with AA, right? And then I'm gonna do this work and only get a day at a time. Like, what kind of shit is that? Why can't I just be cured, right? But I was honestly ready to try anything, so I gave it a good solid year. And I honestly didn't know if I could do it or not, and I didn't think I was going to, but I was willing to try. And I was trying my best, and I got a sponsor that had something I wanted. I couldn't find somebody that was like me because I felt terminally unique. I wanted a sponsor that was like me, and I couldn't find it. And I had to settle for somebody who had something I wanted. And he had gotten divorced from his wife, and then they got remarried and got back together. So I was like, oh, that's what I want. And that relationship led to so many breakthroughs through working the steps It was miracle after miracle after miracle. And the biggest miracle of them all is that I chose him because I wanted control of that relationship with my wife. And the magical thing that happened was I was able to let go and realize that I did not own her, that she was God's child, not Dustin's wife, not Dustin's property, and that she deserved to be happy. And what I was providing to her was not facilitating happiness. And I got to a point in my personal growth where I was able to just work on trying to have a home that fostered growth. Whether we grew together or apart, I learned not to be into the results, just focus on the actions of trying to build a place that's safe and fosters growth for everybody, not just myself. And my whole life changed, man. It was such a beautiful thing, and it was almost, I felt like I was tricked, right? Like I was duped, because here I was to get control of this relationship, and then I ended up letting go and giving it to God. And then when I did that, like all these magical things happened, and it was just magical thing after magical thing. So I've been given so many miracles in this program. It's just, there's no way they're not God shots, you know? God has worked so many ways through my life. It's been so beautiful. And to be sober 5 years is just mind-blowing to me. And I remember early in my sobriety, there was this project I was doing. I was telling my wife, I was like, I'm really feeling like suicidal right now. I don't trust myself to go home. And I'm working on this Girl Scout project for my daughter. And I'm digging a hole with her sprinkler at a church. And I'm fixing this sprinkler, and the sprinkler head's messed up. And I get down, and then the part it connects to is messed up, and it's got roots wrapped around it. And I'm digging that out, and I'm going down deeper and deeper and deeper. And the whole thing turned into this metaphor for my life and what my sobriety was going to look like. As I'm digging down, I'm getting the main connector pipe, and I'm working with a breaker bar and getting these roots out, and then I go and I hit all the way down to the 3-inch main. It just floods the whole fucking parking lot. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm looking up at God, and I said to God, what are you trying to teach me here? And that's what really, that was where I really felt like I was able to let go, because I started asking God, what can you teach me, or what am I supposed to be learning here? And I stopped trying to be in control of everything. And it was this magical moment where God touched me, and I just had no idea. And it was like a lot, like my issues are deeply rooted, right? And I got to get to the bottom of it. And it really helped me launch into the step work and give it my all. And what a beautiful experience it turned out to be. And I don't know, I could go on and on about how beautiful my sobriety has been and how grateful I am to be a part of this group in particular. And, you know, some of you guys, you know, all I really want to say is I didn't think I was going to be able to do this, man, and stay sober. And to be sober 5 years it's mind-blowing. And if I can do it, you guys can do it. And all I want to do is ask you guys, if you're not calling your sponsor, call your sponsor. If you haven't done the step work, get off your ass and do the step work. The rewards are worth it, and you're worth it. In the beginning of my sobriety, a guy turned me on to a book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depended on It. In that book, it helped me realize that I did not love myself. And, oh shit. And it's not there. Oh well, here it is. In that book, I made a new vow, because my vow was, I will drink till I die. And reading that book and all the others in AA, I wrote this note to myself. This day I vow to myself, I will love myself from this day on. And that's really part of what really, this is where God touched me and saved me, because I had no love for myself and I could not share that with anybody. But today I do love myself and I can love others. And it's you guys that have helped me get there. Thank you.